Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my 2025 library tour. In this episode, the third shelf of this bookcase here. To recap how the books on this shelf are organized, when I moved my history collection to this bookcase, I started with these end shelves, which is why most of my American history are located on these shelves and the ones on the other side. And why at the end there will be some American biographies. So let's get going. This vast southern empire, slaveholders at the helm of American foreign policy by Matthew Karp. So this is a history of how the slave power in the United States in the early and mid 19th century controlled American foreign policy. Rather quite good. I read it about 10 or so years ago. Quite liked it, wanted it in my collection, although I have not gotten around to a reread. I have never gotten around to The Polarizers, Post-War Architects of Our Partisan Era by Sam Rosenfeld. This is from the University of Chicago Press. I picked it up a year or two ago from the big yearly catalog sale because it was like for a few dollars. But I haven't gotten around to it. I have bailed on A Brutal Reckoning, Andrew Jackson, the Creek Indians, and the Epic War for the American South by Peter Cozzens. So this is the story of the Creek War. I tried to read it sometime last year I don't remember if it was in July or later in the year, but the opening chapter really set me off. There is several factual errors in the first paragraph that were not caught by the author, by his editors, by his readers, by the overall editor. And I'm like, if you messed this up, what other mistakes are there? So I bailed on it, and yeah. How to Hide an Empire, A History of the Greater United States by Daniel Amawar. So this is a history of of America's non-continental possessions, namely Puerto Rico, the Philippines while it was under American dominion, Japan while it was under American occupation, and other overseas territories. This is quite a good book. I read it several years ago and wanted a copy in my library, which I have, although, again, I have not gotten around to a reread. The Impeachers, The Trial of Andrew Johnson and the Dream of a Just Nation by Brenda Wineapple. So this is a story of the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, and it is quite a good book. I rather enjoy Brenda Wineapple's histories. This one, and I have another one that I don't think I've gotten to yet. Oh yeah, it will come tomorrow. I have got to reorganize these shelves. Newsprint Metropolis, City Newspapers and the Making of Modern Americans by Giulia Guarneri. Again, from Chicago University Press. Again, this was on sale a few years ago for a few dollars, so I picked it up, but I haven't gotten around to it. Now, we move on to the Holy Roman Empire, the Habsburgs, and Germany, Part 1. So first up is the Holy Roman Empire by Trevor Bryce. This is a very old book. I picked it up from the Waco McLennan County Library. So it's a DXS, and I must have picked it up from one of the library book sales. I also have The Holy Roman Empire, A Short History by Barbara Stolberg-Rillinger, translated by Yair Minsker. So this is a very interesting short history of the Holy Roman Empire that is rather more academic than an introduction. The next three books are by Peter H. Wilson. The Heart of Europe, A History of the Holy Roman Empire, which is done in a very, very technical sense. I am very interested in the Holy Roman Empire, and I was hoping this would be a really good history of the Holy Roman Empire, but it's too academic, I think. I haven't gotten around to the 30 Years' War, Europe's Tragedy yet, but I'm also interested in the 30 Years' War. Hopefully it won't be nearly as academic as Heart of Europe. And I have not gotten around to Iron and Blood, A Military History of the German-Speaking People since 1500, which I would like to get to. Hopefully it's not nearly as academic as Heart of Europe. The Middle Kingdoms, A New History of Central Europe by Martin Ruddy. So this is a history of Central and Eastern Europe from the Romans through to the 20th century and into the 21st century. There are parts of the book that I quite liked and parts of it that I didn't quite care for, and certainly by the 18th, 19th century, I started to lose steam with this book. The Habsburg Empire, A New History by Peter M. Utzon. So this is an overview of the Habsburg Empire from Maria Theresa through to the Franz Josef, I think. I also have The Habsburgs, To Rule the World by Martin Ruddy. So this is a history of the Habsburg dynasty from its origins as a rather minor noble family in what is now Switzerland to becoming the Archdukes of Austria and being largely hereditary Holy Roman Emperors to being the sort of glue that bound much of Central and Eastern Europe together for a few centuries. Rather good book. I rather enjoyed it. Significantly more than the Middle Kingdoms. And of course, if you're going to have anything on the Habsburgs, you probably would want to have one on the most famous Habsburg of them all, Maria Theresa. The Habsburg Empress in Her Time by Barbara Stolberg-Rillinger, translated by Robert Savage. This is a massive, definitive biography of Maria Theresa. And I rather liked it. It is certainly dry, but I quite liked it. I also have In the Shadow of the Empress, The Defiant Lives of Maria Theresa, mother of Marie Antoinette and her daughters. Okay, that subtitle needs some work, but this is by Nancy Goldstone. Have not gotten to this yet. And apparently she's got quite a few books on the back. The Franco-Prussian War, The German Conquest of France in 1870 to 1871 by Geoffrey Warrow. So this is the first book I ever owned on the Franco-Prussian War. I had it 20 years ago, well, more than 20 years ago. Really enjoyed it. Wanted to have it back in my collection, so I re-added it and reread it again. And it's quite a good, short intro to the Franco-Prussian War. But it has since been superseded by Bismarck's War, the Franco-Prussian War, and the Making of Modern Europe by Rachel Krestel. This is an amazing history of the Franco-Prussian War that not only looks at the various military maneuvers and battles, but also the effects of the war on French civilians. I think perhaps if the book is lacking in anything, it could be that some attention could have been paid to what was going on back in Germany at the same time. But this is a really good book. Blood and Iron, The Rise and Fall of the German Empire, 1871 to 1918, by Katja Hoyer. So this is a very short history of the German Empire and what led up to the German Empire. I really enjoyed this book when I read it, and honestly, I think it could probably be 800 more pages. And I would love to see a really big history of the German Empire. Speaking of the German Empire, Bismarck, A Life by Jonathan Steinberg. So this is a biography of Otto von Bismarck. I tried it I think maybe about 2 years ago, and I found it a bit too academic for what I wanted. I might come back to it at some point, but I don't know for sure. November 1918, The German Revolution by Robert Gerwarth. So this is a history of the fall of the Hohenzollern dynasty as well as the other German royal houses in the aftermath of the First World War. A history of the Weimar Republic, from the collapse of the empire to Hindenburg's election, Volume 1 by Eric Ike. I've had this book for well over 20 years. I don't remember if I picked this up from the Friends of the Library book sale, or I'm thinking it was from my university library. Like I said before, they would sometimes put out discarded books or withdrawn books from their collection, or somehow or other some books would be put out there and for students or anybody who wanted them to take them, and that might have been where I got this. One of the two. So it's been about 10 to 20 years since I added this to my collection, although I haven't gotten around to it yet. I do have another history of the Weimar Republic, though. This is Vertigo, The Rise and Fall of Weimar Germany by Harold Jahner. I think this is also translated by Sean Whiteside, who did, yes. And I think he also translated Aftermath. Sometimes the translators are not mentioned in the cover, so I sometimes forget to hunt them down in the translated works that I have. But anyway, so this is the history of the Weimar Republic. It came out, I think, last year, and I had a go at it, and I wasn't all that successful. I think in part because I'd already read something that covered a part of what Jahner's covering here, and we'll get to that shortly. Because I have two books on Germany in 1923. Germany, 1923, by Volker Ulrich. which is does not have the translator's name on here. Jeffrey Chase. I have not gotten around to this one yet, but I have read the other book on Germany in 1923, which came out, I think, maybe a month or so before Germany in 1923. This is 1923, The Crisis of German Democracy in the Year of Hitler's Putsch by Mark William Jones. So this is a pretty fascinating look at Germany in 1923, from the financial crisis to Hitler's Putsch and very other incidents that happened in that year. Quite a good book. Now, moving back to American history, I have 2 books on Native Americans and 1 book on the American West at the very end. So this is Lakota America, A New History of Indigenous Power by Pekka Hamalainen. So this is a history of the Lakotas from the, I think, 17th century through to the 1920s. I don't think it goes much into the 20th century, and I certainly don't think it goes into the 21st century. And so this book largely looks at, or has the argument that the Lakotas were well, I know Hamalainen has a rather controversial take on the Lakotas compared to other historians of them. It's been a bit since I read it, and it's a bit too academic for my taste, and I didn't particularly get on with it. The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee, Native America from 1890 to the Present by David Truer. So this is a history of Native Americans in the 20th century and how various tribes have adapted to American occupation or occupation by the United States. It's been a while since I read it. And finally, from this shelf, Dreams of El Dorado, A History of the American West by H.W. Brands. So this is a history of the American West told from a number of perspectives, including fur trappers, early naturalists, and conservationists, a few others. It's been a bit since I've read this, so... Oh yeah, some people going to Texas, the gold rushes, that sort of thing. Quite good. I rather enjoyed it. Been a bit since I read it, though. So that was the third shelf of this bookcase. I will be back tomorrow with the fourth shelf of this bookcase. Until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.